Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Not sure who we have in here right now, but if you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves, whoever is present right now. If you can go ahead and put into the comments what your name is, what your pronouns are, what your role or job is within the brewing industry, and then how many years you've been in the hospitality industry altogether. And we'll give everybody a couple minutes to go ahead and do that, and we can go forth and introduce ourselves. So we'll give everybody a moment there and try not to have too much dead air.
So while folks are getting settled and writing your info in the comments section, let's just start with introducing ourselves. My name is Lauren Taylor. I use the she or the they pronouns. I'm the director of Safe Bars. I've been working on ending gender-based violence for decades and decades, and thrilled to have found a way to do that in the hospitality, bar, restaurant, and brewing sector, where I think a lot of crucial cultural change can happen. And thanks, Andrew, for inviting us to do this today.
Awesome. And my name is Amie Ward. I use the she, her pronouns. I am coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland. I have been in the hospitality industry for well over 20 years, starting as a dishwasher in a crab house in Edgewater, Maryland, which is probably the most Maryland thing I can describe. I have run every kind of position within the hospitality industry, again, starting in back of house, moving to the front of house, and most recently having run bar programs in Maryland. I also have a background in exercise physiology. So my other passion is health and wellness derived at our industry. So trying to teach people in our industry how to take better care of their bodies so they can stay in here for the long haul. And because I care so much about wellness, I was very much driven to the Safe Bars curriculum, which aims at trying to create these equitable, safe, welcoming spaces for people that work with us, the guests that come into our establishments, and everyone that's in the service industry as a whole. I've been training with Safe Bars for about 4 years, a little more than 4 years. Keep saying that time is a construct, and I've pretty much lost any understanding of what time is at this point over the last 18, 19 months. But I'm pretty sure it's 4 years at least. Once again, if you all are just joining in, please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chats. Let us know what your names are, pronouns that you use, your role and job within the brewing industry, and how many years you've been in the hospitality industry as a whole. And then we will go ahead and get started probably in just a minute or so with our chat for today, since we've only got a small amount of time to do what we normally do for our Safe Bars trainings. And if for some reason you're not comfortable introducing yourselves in the chats, you can feel free to ask us any questions about what you're hoping to learn today about ending gender-based violence in your places of business, ending harassment in general.
Amie, if you'd go to the next slide, we can talk about what we're going to do today. Thanks.
Ooh. Okay. And I think that is supposed to be me. So today, what we're going to be doing, this is going to be a little bit different because we normally work with people in a face-to-face setting. So you'll have to forgive us if we come off as a little awkward. We're awkward and wonderful in general, but not being able to see your response to things makes it a little bit different. Normally what we do is work with people to go over these in which we're going to define the problem being that there is harassment in our hospitality industry, in the beer industry specifically, and all around the industry. It's not just secluded to that. We're going to talk about what Safe Bars does, the kinds of trainings that we do offer for people in the industry. We're going to learn about how to actually intervene in situations that we see in our establishments and how to do so safely, non-confrontationally, and in an effort to prevent harm and create that safe environment. And then we're going to see if we can give people an opportunity to practice those things, or it might just be a little bit more of demo and some practicing of certain lines that we can use for this kind of wonderful bystander intervention.
So before we get into it, just want to talk about a few agreements. One is, we are talking about potentially upsetting topics, which is everything from harassment to abuse to assault. So please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself if you find it kind of getting to you emotionally. Some ideas are just, taking a drink of water, feeling your feet on the floor, remembering to breathe consciously if you feel like it's kind of getting to you. We will also be asking you to keep confidential anything that anybody else shares. You can talk as much as you want about me and Amie and what we said and what you learned. But if anybody shares anything in the comments, please keep that confidential. We are going to hopefully have a little time for questions toward the end. Feel free to throw questions into the comments at any point, and we will integrate the answers when we can. But hopefully we're going to have some Q&A time toward the end. So feel free to throw comments in at any point. So I want to just quickly give you an idea about what Safe Bars does. Everything we do is aimed at creating safe and respectful environments in hospitality broadly and breweries in particular. So that's whether you are whether you're dealing with a person who works there, whether you're dealing with a boss, whether you're dealing with a problematic patron, it doesn't matter who's harassing whom. What matters is that you are a witness to it, or you know about it, and that you are in a position to say something or do something about it. And that is the bystander intervention core of the skills that we offer. We also do a few other things, including that we teach empowerment and self-defense skills for if you are the person being targeted and you want to know what you can say or do. And we also teach de-escalation, particularly during the pandemic, when patrons are even more than usual treating public-facing staff poorly. So those are some of the things that we do. All of it, as I said, is aimed at creating safe and respectful workplaces and safe and respectful places for people to go out and have a good time. We're not the only the only strategy in the world to end sexual harassment. We're one of many. All of them are needed. We offer these trainings so that those of you who work in breweries and in hospitality more generally can have the tools to make the change that you want. So let's look at what the problem is, how we define the problem.
Yes. All right. So we don't really often read off of slides in these situations. We are very much more conversational than anything else, but this is really important. You can make a difference in your position within your brewery, tap room, wherever it might be that you work. Research shows that the environment around an aggressor can make a difference in their behavior and help prevent sexual harassment and assault. Brewery staff, like anybody that's participating in this conference, are in the perfect position to establish a safe, respectful environment where these behaviors are not tolerated. And that is because as a person in the service industry, what you are providing for people is a service. You're an essential worker. there's something that you can provide that people cannot do for themselves at home. You also provide the experience. You are able to give them the hospitable experience that they might, be looking for, and also be able to kind of guide their night, their day, their whatever, and let them see how you expect them to behave inside of your establishment, and how you expect them to behave towards other people in the establishment. So this is a super important thing. Just what the next couple of slides are going to do are show you some facts that are related to the industry, and really help kind of define what is going on here. So what we're looking at here, harassment in the world right now, data that we have says that 76% of those who identify as women and 35% of those who identify as men have been sexually, verbally harassed in the world, in their regular environment, not just in the service industry. This is important that we note that this is just verbal harassment and doesn't include anything regarding assault, inappropriate touching, flashing, online harassment, following, stalking, whatever you think. Also, it's important to note that anything that we talk about in terms of the data, there's insufficient data for non-binary people. And the information that we have is mostly from 2019, because we all know that 2020 was a void in which we hope to never have to relive ever again, even though it's kind of ongoing. But what we're hoping for in 2021 and beyond is that there will be more robust data that doesn't include people who identify anywhere on the LGBTQIA and non-binary spectrum, to make sure that there is a more comprehensive look at everybody that is in the world and everybody that lives in this day to day. So something that is really important to note is that 1 in 5 women have experienced a completed or attempted rape, right? 1 in 5 women have experienced a completed or attempted rape. The number for men is a little bit different here. We have 1 in 33. It's important to know just how prevalent this is, and we can guarantee that these are underreported numbers. There's a lot of different narratives that exist in our society that prevent people from speaking up, whether it's the victim blaming, shaming, really convoluted legal systems, whatever it might be. There's a lot of hurdles that people have to go through in order to actually report something that has happened to them. And it's not a very conducive environment for getting accurate data. So we are hoping to present this information in an attempt to break down these barriers, rechange, spin that narrative around and make sure that people believe those who have experienced assault, and they feel more comfortable being able to speak up. The next stat I'm going to show you is incredibly important and vital for you being in the service industry. And that is, for women, 9 out of 10 attackers are people that they know, right? So this could be family, friends, coworkers, whatever kind of acquaintance you might think of. For men, it's about 50%. But why is this so important? That is because when you are looking at anybody that comes into our establishments, we can't make an assumption about anything in their relation. If these people appear that they might be on a date, or might just be friends, or might be a parental and childlike situation, obviously a 21 or older child, because alcohol. It's important that we understand that just because people came in together doesn't mean everything is fine. We need to look at the entire duration of their time in our establishment in order to see what's going on. And if anything starts to feel uncomfortable to you in any single way, it is super, super important that you trust your gut and ensure that you are able to just check in some capacity, even by saying, how's your night going? Or how's your drink? Or how's your beer? How's your water? How's the weather outside? Whatever you can do just to get hands on the situation and let people know that you're here, so you can see what's going on and test whatever your gut is trying to tell you. It's also important to note that people who are in the LGBTQIA community experience this harassment far more regularly and more severely than those who identify as straight. And this is also super important for us to notice, because we need to kind of think about challenging any kind of unconscious biases or preconceived notions that we have based upon the way that somebody might present when they walk into our establishments. If it looks like two people who might be presenting as male or presenting as female, and that's also a very limited and defining characteristic, we can't make assumptions about anybody that walks in. We need to be treating every single person like a human being that is deserving of the utmost service and professionalism, and be able to watch for any single interaction that happens in our environments. So we can't make any assumption based upon what we perceive that person to be when they walk into our space. We need to watch the entire way through. In addition to noting that people in the LGBTQIA community experience this kind of harassment a little bit more aggressively, severely, and more frequently, it's important to note that people who identify in multiple marginalized populations are even at a greater risk. That makes it so that trans women of color are the most severely targeted for harassment and assault. So it's really important that we take off some blinders, challenge any kind of preconceived notions that we have about anybody that's coming into our establishment, and make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to be in our spaces safely and enjoy themselves. So some more underreported numbers. I guarantee this is incorrect. Harassment in the industry, some research that we have says that 66% of women employed in restaurants have been harassed at work, compared to 44% of men employed in restaurants that having been harassed at work. I guarantee this is so incorrectly reported or underreported, and that's for a multitude of reasons. But we can absolutely assume that these numbers are much greater. They're also not inclusive of all populations that exist in this world. And it also is very telling to see that with these numbers being kind of what I would consider to be low, and I think most people would consider to be low, is that we have been socialized to possibly think that some of the behaviors that happen in our establishments are normal, and they're not normal. We are trying to redefine what is appropriate behavior and what is not. And it's important that we have these conversations so we have that opportunity to challenge that. The next thing I want to talk about, super, super big, is that sexual assault and alcohol is very much intertwined. We have that 1 in 2 sexual assaults involve alcohol. But if you were in a class with me right now, I would make you stand up and shout this with me from the rooftop, and that alcohol does not cause sexual assault. I like to say that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. We know that alcohol does not cause sexual assault. Instead, it is used as a weapon to incapacitate a target and as an excuse or camouflage for the behavior of an aggressor, right? So this is also a reason why a lot of people who have been assaulted or experienced some kind of harassment don't want to speak up, because they're afraid that if they were drinking, somebody will say, well, you were drunk, you were asking for this. That is a victim blaming or shaming narrative that has been used time and time again for people to discredit those humans who speak up and say, hey, this has happened to me. So it's really, really important that we understand and we can have the opportunity to change this landscape so people know that alcohol does not cause sexual assault. What we can consider is that if we do see somebody is enjoying our beverages, like, look, we are not trying to skirt around the idea that we are pushing alcohol, right? We make delicious products. We want our people to enjoy it safely, and that's okay. We are responsible in that. We're trained on serving laws and knowing when people might be overserved, and that's a really important factor, because if somebody has been overserved or if somebody might be drunk in your establishment, that's okay. What you can possibly take into consideration is that their ability to consent to any kind of behavior that's coming from a stranger or somebody that they came in with or whatever might be questionable behavior, they might not be able to give consent. So we do want to be aware of that, because that's an opportunity for us to be able to safely intervene and make sure that we don't let something happen that is preventable in our establishments. I had something else to say about this. Yes. So there's other things. There's lots of research that shows that even if a person is just like holding a beverage in their hand, even if it's not an alcoholic one, perhaps that person is drinking like a soda water because they're not imbibing tonight, an aggressor will be more persistent even if they think, even if that is a non-alcoholic drink. If they see a drink in the hand, they will be more persistent towards that target and trying to harass them because they possibly think that they might have been drinking, right? Very big. Alcohol does not cause sexual assault. Write it across the world, post it on your social media, let everybody know. It's not the case. A person can get as drunk as they want to. They will not be assaulted if there is not an aggressor there to do the assaulting. And I will stop talking now and turn it over to Lauren so they can talk about our strategies.
So what can you do about all of this? Well, there are lots of approaches, but one is when you are a person who witnesses what's going on. You either could actually see it or hear it, or somebody could tell you about it. And the 3 Ds, direct, distract, and delegate, is one approach to dealing with a problematic situation when you see it. Any one of the Ds, direct, distract, or delegate, you could do with the person who is doing the aggression or with the person who's being targeted. So direct is exactly what it sounds like. You are acknowledging that there might be a problem. That's it. It doesn't mean that you have to go in, guns blazing, on your white horse to solve the, to save the day. It simply means that you could say something like, how's your night going? Or are you okay with everything that's happening now? So really just acknowledging that something might be going on. Distract is exactly what it sounds like. Anything that takes the attention away from the aggressor targeting the other person. So we're going to get more into detail about what that could be, but literally saying like, I love your shoes, or do you know where the bathroom is, can break the dynamic and or give the person who's being targeted a moment to get out of the situation. And delegate is where you get someone who's in a better position to deal with it. So when you think about tap rooms, and brew pubs, it might be the person's friends. When you're talking about coworkers inside the brewery, it might be people who have some peer influence. So it could be like friends. So it could be something like, your guy is saying this. Is that okay with you? Can you handle it? So direct, distract, and delegate are the 3 main approaches. You can use any one of them with the aggressor or with the target. And what I'm going to do now is go through each one in a little bit more detail. And we can talk about how you would actually apply them. So direct, as I said, are you okay, is a very simple one, or how's your day going? How's your night going? We don't do that here, is another way of being direct. Here are some actual phrases that you can use. If you are following along with us and you can say these out loud, that's great, because actually studies show that when you've said the words out loud, even if you're not in the situation, you're more likely to be able to do it in a stressful situation. So I'm going to read one, then Amie will read one. We'll just go back and forth. So are you okay?
Sorry, would you like me to say these with you so we can do them out loud, or just go back?
No, I want you to go every other one. So you say, do you need anything?
Do you need anything?
I heard what happened. How can I support you?
I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?
That's not your fault,
I saw that, and that's not okay.
Let's move over here and chat. So those are all examples of the kinds of things you could do if you're dealing with the person who's being targeted for harassment, whether they're a patron, a coworker, or anybody else. When you're going to be direct with the aggressor, the person who is targeting somebody, again, just acknowledging that something's going on. So here are some examples. It's not okay to talk to people that way.
It's not okay to treat people like that.
That's actually not allowed here.
You need to leave them alone.
You need to stop or I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
That joke is inappropriate.
You'll need to leave. So distract, as again, this is the one that is the most fun in terms of creativity. Anything you can think of can be a distraction. So when you're distracting the aggressor, your friends are looking for you. Are you a fan of this team? Have you tried the happy hour special? There's a problem with your credit card. I need you to come over and look at this project with me, or solve this problem with this piece of production machinery. Anything that gets the person distracted from the person they're targeting is good. Distracting with the person who's being targeted. Your table is ready. The bathroom is open now. We have another table for you. Can you help me with this project? Can you sub in for me behind the bar for a minute? Can you come talk to me about this other project that I'm working on? Can you meet with me in so-and-so's office? Anything, and again, also simple everyday type of things like, I love your hair, or, did you go to this high school? You look familiar. Anything you can think of. Dropping something is a good distraction. Anything you can think of that breaks the energy of what's going on between the aggressor and the target works there. And delegate. Who can you delegate to you in your workspace? If you want to throw something in the comments, that would be great. But you can delegate to a coworker. You can delegate to sometimes to a manager or a supervisor. You can delegate to, if it's a member of the public who's being problematic, you can often delegate to their friends or anybody who they're with, their coworkers. Some
other really good ones that we have found, like we all have regulars in our establishments. If you have a trusted regular that you can lean on, someone who might be able to bend an ear for a while or totally distract somebody, lean into those good regulars. Like they are, we have amazing regulars. We have somewhat too much to handle regulars sometimes, but those good regulars, lean into that.
Cool. So Amie and I are gonna do a little demo to show you how you might apply some of this in your workspace. So we're imagining that we're on a brewery tour. I'm on a brewery tour. I'm a patron. I'm on a brewery tour. Amie is the tour leader. She works at the brewery. And I've maybe had a few too many beers, and I'm getting out of hand with my sexual and sexist comments to other people who are on the tour, or maybe just putting them out there in the world and not really caring who they're landing on. We don't rehearse these, so what you're going to see is true improv, because that is how life is. So I'm going to pretend to be the drunk person on the tour. Oh man, look at her. Did you know that women work in production? I wonder what she's wearing under that, like,
hi,
she must have some incredible muscles and other stuff.
Hi, I'm the woman who works in production. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Good to meet you. Yeah.
Wonderful.
This is pretty unusual, huh? Women in production.
It's actually not very unusual, but I thank you for pointing that out. As you'll see, I am wearing a t-shirt that is related to the brewery that I work at. So if you have any other questions related to the tour or the beer, I'd be happy to answer those.
Oh, yeah. So, like these other women, like you all are like friends, like good friends?
We are all co-workers and we do our jobs very well. And it doesn't matter whether they're women or men or nothing in between. Like we just do a really good job and we love beer.
Yeah, so, me too. I love beer.
Yeah, we all love beer. Let's continue on this tour, shall we? Come on.
So, Amie, talk about what are some of the approaches that you use there.
Sure. So I it might not come as any surprise if you are just watching this and seeing me speak. I'm very much attuned to the direct type of intervention, and that's not for everybody, and that's totally fine. So I generally will approach whatever situation in a direct manner. I think I am able to do that because I am a female presenting person, and it makes it less threatening. So it's not confrontational in the way that I do it. But I will directly address what somebody has said to me. And if they continue on and say additional things that might be inappropriate, I will completely distract them and try to get them moving on into the next set. Because I don't want to take a chance of escalating any kind of situation. So sometimes if the direct isn't really, if it's not that they're picking up on it so much, then I'll distract and try a different tactic to get the flow somewhere else, redirect that energy.
So in that situation, some distractions could be like, and did you know that this brewery produces X amount per day? Mm-hmm. You know, let me tell you about how widely we're distributed, or anything that brings people back to the subject at hand.
Yeah, and if they start to ask personal questions, it's like, I'm not cool with giving out personal information, but I am happy to tell you about our happy hour specials for today. You can do anything to like redirect it back to why you are here, which is to be in this establishment, to be in the brewery, to be in this tap room. So it's always good to redirect it back to there. Even when we get to the point of in the distractions beforehand, it was like, are you a sports ball fan? Like, we put that in there because it is that you want to adjust the sports to whatever area that you might be in. But if you say sports ball like that totally throws people off and like disrupts the energy that could be kind of heavy at that point in time or awkward. But I think it's super important that people understand, like, so there are the 3 Ds. There's direct, distract, delegate. It doesn't matter which one you do. Even if you are not comfortable intervening and you need to delegate to somebody else that's in a better position to help you, that's still intervention. So it's really important that people lean on what feels good to them, what comes naturally to them. Like if you are a storyteller, or you are a joke person, or if you can tell whoppers, or you can totally just whatever, like lean into what you're really good at. I know most of the people in our industry are very gregarious and very much able to command an audience with their stories. So lean into that if you want. You don't have to be direct if that feels uncomfortable. It's important to realize that it's not confrontational when you're being direct, because being direct can be as simple as, how are you doing?
So let's talk about if it's not a patron, right? Because there's so many other kinds of harassment. There's coworkers, there's supervisors, there's distributors, there's accounts, right? So let's talk about what you would do in another type of situation where you're dealing with someone who's not a patron.
If you're dealing with someone who's not a patron, let's go with if you're in sales and you might be dealing with a distributor on a ride along or something like that. These are still tactics that you can utilize that should not cause any kind of disturbance in the force. But it's important to know what your workplace guidelines are. Are you supported by whomever it is that you work for in order to be able to speak up? So that's important to know in the first place. If the behavior that is inappropriate continues, can you if you're working with a distributor, can you work with the management of the distribution team? Can you bring someone with you on your ride-alongs in that capacity? I think trying to set the expectations pretty early as to how you want to be treated and how your brand, how your brewery expects people to behave or be treated when they're in that establishment is really important too.
So one thing, we hear a lot about the troubles with harassment by accounts, by distributors, of course, by coworkers and bosses. One thing is, especially when you're out with say with a distributor or with an account, if you're not on your own, setting the expectation early on that you're going to look out for each other. Mm-hmm. And so, if you give a signal to your coworker or your boss that's like, distress, that they can step in and change the subject, that they can take over the conversation with the other person, that they can, distract with some other topic, or that they can be direct and be like, Amie's one of our best salespeople, and people really respect her. And we'd like to see that from you too.
Yeah. And something along the lines of like, we're not here to talk about my personal details. We're here to talk about beer. Do you want to sell this beer or not? I think very much being supportive of one another in the industry is really important for us to being able to change this landscape. Having people back you up, especially for more vulnerable populations that are subject to more harassment. If you think that harassment is not happening, it's because you are a person who doesn't come off or is not perceived as a vulnerable person. So even if it doesn't happen to you, recognize and honor that it is happening to other people and support them and help them out and be there for them in any kind of instance where they bring up that harassment is happening. I think a lot of stuff that something really interesting and intricate and specific to this industry that we've dealt with over the last couple of months of doing these trainings is that there's a lot of quid pro quo that goes into sales and accounts. So when you're trying to get your beer, your product into a establishment, whether it's on premise or off premise, there's a lot of, well, what are you going to do for me? Or if it's even not that directly said, it will be something more seemingly innocuous, but still nefarious of the, I'll do it if you give me your phone number, or what else will you give me if I put this in here, if I put your beer in here. And the thing is it's about sales. You don't have to do anything for those people. So, check with the groups that you're working with, check with your workplace, because a lot of times they'll be like, we can put that account in there, and then there does not need to be any continued representation from our brand in there. I've definitely gotten that from a lot of different breweries and larger scale corporations that have said, like, we don't need to send somebody in there. If they want to carry our product, that's fantastic. They will not receive any additional, they won't receive POS, they won't receive support in any other way. That's not what it's about. It's about, this is the product that we are proud of. This is what we're trying to get into there. It's not about exploiting anybody's personal space, personal details, or anything like that. So I have found that the brand side, the larger like parent company side of things is very supportive of their sales teams when they go out there. All these things are very flexible and adaptable to whether you're in the brewery, in the tap room, or on the road, like trying to get the beer into an establishment. Same thing. A lot of beer fest stories have come up too, like people who work beer festivals and have tents and there's large crowds and things of that nature. What we have found is that people who speak up ahead of time and say that they want more than, they don't want to work solo, they want to make sure that they have a partner to be working with at that time, is a really safe approach to making sure that there is safety in numbers and that there's backup and support no matter what might be happening, whether it's an overserved person or something else that goes a little bit more intently beyond that. But teamwork, backing up one another, making sure that you are supporting somebody when they say, hey, this is something I've been experiencing, is incredibly important for us to continue changing what narratives have existed in the bar world, the beer world, and everything within service industry. We've got to have each other's backs in order to make this change. And it is happening. I see it. We are tearing down those barriers and boundaries that used to prevent us from being able to have a more supportive and safe work environment wherever we are.
So this goes very naturally into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, what can be done at the organizational level, not just like, what can I do when I see a problem or when somebody's targeting me, but what can the organization do? So, putting people out in teams or in pairs is one good example. Obviously listening to and believing people when they tell you that there's a problem and listening to them about how they want to solve those problems. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering from, you've spent more time working with the breweries than I have. What are some other things that you've heard folks do organizationally that enables the brewery to create a safer and more respectful work experience?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. So number one, there's a lot of people that are proactively getting their teams trained up either on bystander intervention or de-escalation skills, and actively telling them, we are empowering you to be able to stand up when you see these things or if you experience these things. So just the simple notion of being told that you are empowered and we support you to stand up for yourself, and we will support you if you do stand up for yourself,
Right.
or others.
We have your back.
Yep. That is incredibly important. That's so huge. That has been a really big thing. I've also seen people are coming up with little, mottos for their individual establishments. Like I think Four Saints was one of the ones that had "Hate has no home here." That was just something that they blurted out as a intervention technique. Was a beautiful thing to see. We also have talked a lot about people who do happen to be in spaces where they do have corporate office and they do have upper management and things of that nature. Creating an outside reporting system is super important, especially for anything that could be happening internally within the brewery. Right. And that's because even if you have HR still works for the company. And people have barriers to being able to speak out and reach out to HR. So having those independent establishments that are in place for people to report anonymously is critical.
One thing that we've heard in working with a lot of breweries recently is kind of widespread problems with distributors. Mm-hmm. And I know that relationships with distributors are very complex and not easily changed necessarily, but some folks have been considering writing into their contracts with distributors, like, this contract is contingent on, respectful treatment from all the people who work for the distributor. Yep. So like setting those understandings early, and making the business relation contingent on, respectful relations, is another good way of addressing it.
Yeah, well, it's huge. And if someone were to violate that, yes, it is very difficult to get your product out of a specific distributor. But once a large portfolio is out, that hurts their wallets. So at the end of the day, like, people they understand that this is good for business in addition to good for the world. Yes. In general. So those kind of contingency plans are really, really crucial.
So I just want to thank you, Amie, for having this conversation with me. I want to thank everybody for attending, and Andrew and Craft Beer Professionals for putting it on. Just want to say quickly that Safe Bars is working with Craft Beer Professionals to run a project we're calling the PACT, and it stands for Promise of blanking on this now. Promise of Action, Compassion, and Trust. And we are offering a free model code of conduct. If you put your email address in the comments, we will send you the free model code of conduct. If you are watching this later, feel free to email info@safebars.org, and we will send you the free code of conduct. It is something that you can take to your workplace and adapt it as you need, but it sets out expectations for the staff, the patrons, and the vendors of all kinds on how to have a safe and respectful work and hospitality environment. We also, as I mentioned earlier, we offer de-escalation, especially for dealing with problematic patrons during and after the pandemic. And we also offer empowerment skills for what if you are the person being targeted? What can you say? How can you stand up for yourself? What do you do when you don't want to wait around for someone else to stand up on your behalf? So we believe that the cost of stepping up and saying something is usually very, very low, but the cost of not doing it can be very, very high. So when in doubt, please do say something. And if you want to actually get our full training and get a chance to really go into depth on these skills and practice them, please contact us, and we would love to talk with you.
Thank you all so much for tuning in now or later. We appreciate you. Please, please, please keep speaking up, and let's change this landscape and really create these safe spaces in our breweries and tap rooms. Bye. And
thank you all again for being here.
Just gonna keep dancing until we're not live.
And now the special dancing by Amie.
Jazz hands. It's all jazz hands.